Slendy, Ego, Slendy, ayy. Hit it out the park. Hit it with a strike. From the national anthem to the bottom of the night. I've been Slendy, Ego, Slendy, Ego, Slendy, Ego, Slendy, ayy. You already know what's up. What's that? Another home run. You should know the job ain't done till we hold that trophy up. Hey.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 483 of the Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. Ben Fadden with you here. It is October 3rd, 2023, the first day of the postseason. The wild card games are actually going on right now. Brewers and D-backs, Marlins and Phillies. Twins beat the Blue Jays earlier today. And the Tampa Bay Rays and the Texas Rangers also had their game one today. That was the first game of the day. Obviously, the Padres not a part of this postseason, but there was some news that came down. I didn't think there was going to be news that was going to come down today, but there was some news. Now, it's not like confirmed by the team news, but it's a report out by Kevin Acee about the futures of A.J. Preller and Bob Melvin. Also, Manny Machado, he got surgery today in Los Angeles, so we can talk about that. If you want to join the show, click that link that's pinned up at the top of the chat. If you want to make sure I get your comment or your question, you want to support the channel, please use that super chat button. I appreciate anyone that takes the time to do that. But yeah, let's get right into it here. So, A.J. Preller, Bob Melvin, we knew that meeting was happening on Monday. But Peter Seidler released the statement on Monday morning saying, like, he still supports, his full support is in the current leadership team. So I thought when that statement came out, there wasn't going to be any news coming out on Monday, because why would you release a statement at 8 a.m. if you're going to have news later in the day, right? What's the point of the statement? I also was asking what's the point of the statement, because it just created still questions. Maybe more questions about, like, what's the future? Who is in this current leadership team that Peter Seidler is referring to here, right? But then we go to today, and Kevin Acee releases his latest report, his latest article in the San Diego Union Tribune, and says that Padres president of baseball operations, A.J. Preller, continued on Tuesday to conduct business as he usually would at the end of a season, lending credence to the belief that he will return for a 10th season. It is also expected that manager Bob Melvin will return, according to people who have talked to both men. That has not been confirmed, and team officials did not comment Tuesday. So this is not like official that they are returning. The team has not sent out a tweet like Bob Melvin, he is returning in 2024, or A.J. Preller is returning. There is, at least to my knowledge, I'm not an official member of the media. I'm just a Padres fan. But I have not heard anyone say that there is a scheduled press conference for sometime this week. You would think that press conference would happen on Friday, because that's the next day off in Major League Baseball's calendar here in postseason. And teams don't like, Major League Baseball doesn't like when teams announce hirings and firings and have press conferences on the day that postseason games are happening, because that takes away from some of the postseason games. Even though I think clubs should be able to do it whenever they want to do it, because like baseball fans, they can consume everything. They can consume their favorite team hiring or firing someone. They can consume the postseason games that are going on. I don't really understand why Major League Baseball makes that rule, but it seems like they make it pretty clear to teams that they don't want these teams to be having these big news conferences and hirings and firings and all that. They don't want that to be happening on the day that postseason games are happening, especially when there's this many postseason games. It's not like there's a press conference in the morning and there's a game not till like 7 o'clock at night. There's games starting at noon and running till like 8 o'clock at night here on the West Coast, right? And then when the division series starts, the Dodger games will be starting at probably 7 o'clock our time and running till 10 o'clock. So Friday, if we should expect any press conference, maybe Friday is when we should be expecting it. I don't know when the next off day is on the calendar after Friday, but maybe that's when we should be expecting it. Peter Seidler, he is not going to be addressing the media, I would not think, publicly at a press conference. It would be Eric Grutner that is running that. If A.J. Preller stays, I would think it's going to be A.J. Preller. If Bob Melvin remains, maybe they have Bob Melvin go up there as well. Remember last year, it was Preller and it was Melvin at the press conference together after the Padres got eliminated by the Phillies and the NLCS. So maybe that's what we see again, just so like publicly it can see, like fans can see, the media can see they're unified, they're together, they're at the same table here at this press conference. Maybe that's what the Padres decide to do. So again, this is not official, but Kevin Acee reporting here that it is expected that A.J. Preller returns and Bob Melvin also expected that he returns, according to people who have talked to both men. Again, Padres have not confirmed this news. Team officials did not comment on this matter on Tuesday. But is this the right move? Bob Melvin staying with the San Diego Padres, expected to stay. If he indeed stays with the Padres as the manager, is this the right move? Yes. I ask the question again. If Bob Melvin ended up going to the San Francisco Giants, how are you going to sell your fan base on Ryan Flaherty being promoted as the manager? That'll put us in a better spot to go win a World Series than Bob Melvin being with the Padres. I don't think people are going to be buying that. Or if Bob Melvin, even if he walked away and didn't go to any other team, how are you selling that next guy that comes in? Even if you bring in someone like Buck Showalter or you have Mike Schilt come and be the manager instead of be in the dugout a little bit coaching sometimes, right? That seems more like a lateral move. And Buck Showalter, like that's just, I don't think that would be a very popular move with the wild card stuff that happened last year in New York. But I'm just floating his name out there because he was recently let go by the New York Mets. He's a veteran manager. Everyone knows who he is. I could throw Gabe Kapler's name out there, whatever, whoever, you know. All of these moves, someone that you bring in, I don't see how Padres fans would look at that and be like, that is a better guy to come manage the San Diego Padres than Bob Melvin. Bob Melvin, he led this team. He helped manage this team to the NLCS in 2022. So he just forgot how to manage in 2023. All of a sudden now he's not good enough. And I kind of have the same thought with the New York Mets as well. I get it. It's a new president of baseball operations with David Stearns coming in with the Mets. But he led the Mets to, I think, over 100 wins in 2022. Got bounced in the wild card, sure. But it was a lot of underwhelming, disappointing things that happened with the New York Mets, just like the San Diego Padres this year. So I don't think it's totally fair, especially when David Stearns didn't even talk to Buck Showalter before having Billy Epler go make this move, because Epler's the GM under David Stearns. That is yet, we don't really know yet if maybe a GM gets hired and they take the GM title off of A.J. Preller. I don't think that's likely, because I don't think A.J. Preller is going to sit there and be like, yeah, sure, let's bring in a GM to be like the middle guy between me and Bomel, and I get the GM title taken off. I don't think that's something that A.J. would want, right? But with Bob Melvin, yeah, I think this is the right move. The players already respect Bob. If the Padres would have allowed A.J. Preller here to make another managerial hiring, there's no direction but down in terms of experience, right, that you bring in. So are the players going to respect that person that you bring in more than they already respect Bob Melvin? Xander Bogaerts was quoted, I believe, at the end of this season being complimentary of Bob Melvin. And we know Manny likes Bob Melvin. We know a lot of people like Bob Melvin. It feels like the Padres organization had the backing. Like they were backing Bob Melvin. Bob Melvin had the backing of the Padres organization. It just felt like it was A.J. Preller that doesn't connect with Bob Melvin. Maybe some people in the Padres front office with A.J. Preller that doesn't connect with Bob Melvin. But it seems like everyone else likes Bob Melvin as the Padres manager. It seems like Eric Greupner likes Bob Melvin as the Padres manager. Peter Seidler preferred Bob Melvin to stay along with A.J. Preller here. Obviously, some people will disagree with A.J. Preller staying. I'm at the point with A.J. Preller where it's like, just look at the track record. Why not make a move? Like, can it get worse than this? 2021 collapse, 2023, the most disappointing, frustrating season in franchise history. Can it get worse? Yes, brought him to the NLCS in 2022. But, I mean, look what happened this year. Just look at the track record. You know, this year was not a winning, successful season. They might have finished with a winning record, but it was not a winning, successful season. And I'm sorry, when Bob Melvin has problems with your roster construction, And he called A.J. Preller out indirectly multiple times to the media this season, especially at the end of this season, about guys, oh, yes, finally we're putting a bunch of guys in games here. These guys on the bench, they're actually being used. Like, that's great. That's much better when everyone's being involved. He took little shots there at AJ. Didn't mention him obviously directly, but I thought it was pretty clear that he was taking some shots at AJ's roster construction. And so it's just like Bob Melvin, he knows what he's doing. Was he a problem this year? Yes. But was he as big of a problem, I think, this year as AJ Preller and the roster construction? No. Was he as big of a problem as the players just not performing up to their capabilities? No, I don't think he was that big of a problem. So I think the Padres can still go get to that World Series with Bob Melvin. I think it would have been more of a question mark about if the Padres can go be a World Series team if Bob Melvin was not the manager and the Padres brought in someone that was like a first-time manager and they decided to go younger again. So I'm happy. Now, Bob, again, it's not official that Bob Melvin is back, but it seems like he is expected to be back. This is according to Kevin Acee in the Union Tribune. Bob Melvin expected to be back, which I think is the no-brainer move. Like, okay, Preller and Melvin disagree, but I think that's more on Preller than it is on Bob Melvin. Bob Melvin has a role in this, but if you're going to slice this pie up, you're giving a bigger piece of the pie, the blame pie here, to A.J. Preller over Bob Melvin. I think you could just go ask a lot of people probably in that Padres organization, and they would agree with me on that statement. So I'm curious your thoughts, Bob Melvin. Do you think this is the right move? Bob Melvin expected to be back as Padres manager. Now, A.J. Preller, again, getting back to this Kevin Acee piece, A.J. Preller continued on Tuesday to conduct business as he usually would at the end of a season, lending credence to the belief he will return for a 10th season. Is this the right move? A.J. Preller, it seems like he's going to return. One, I'm not surprised by this. Definitely not shocked because of what Peter Seidler put in his statement earlier this week, talking about how the current leadership team has his full support. And I just didn't see how A.J. Preller wasn't a part of the current leadership team when he literally is the president of baseball operations and the general manager of the baseball team. The leadership team could have been Eric Grupner and just part of the Seidler equity group, the private equity group, some of the minority owners. That could have been the leadership team. But how Peter Seidler has talked about A.J. Preller in the past, AJ's excellence, he's not going anywhere, him and Grupner. Peter said this in the middle of this season. A lot of things can change, obviously. People's opinions can change. I feel like some people sometimes forget that, and you have to have the same opinion all the time. No, your opinion can change based on some certain evidence, but it just felt like that was going to be a reach for Peter Seidler to go from AJ's excellence, he's not going anywhere, to now he's gone, especially with some of the health issues that Peter Seidler is reportedly dealing with. And obviously wishing Peter well, but not surprised. AJ, it seems like he is returning. If you're continuing to conduct business as he usually would, then that tells me that you're returning, right? Because if you weren't returning, why would you be conducting business as usual? Wouldn't you still be having these meetings, evaluating the organization, having conversations with Peter Seidler, maybe Eric Grupner, Bob Melvin, other people in the front office, other people in the organization, other decision makers about if you're going to return? Because you got to have those conversations before you just go back to normal, right? So I think those already happened probably on Monday. I'm not saying like these conversations are done about how to improve the organization. Now my question with this is, okay, Peter Seidler in his statement, and I'm going to pull it up again here from the Padres social media yesterday. He talked about how they will be making necessary changes. But if Kevin Acee is correct here and Bob Melvin and A.J. Preller stay, what are those necessary changes? Right? Here's the statement again. We entered 2023 with expectations that we would build on last year's NLCS appearance and contend for a World Series championship. We fell short of that goal the Padres organization will learn from this season and emerge in 2024 with the pieces in place to compete for San Diego's first World Series title. Our current leadership team continues to have my full support. Right there, that's where I was like, okay, AJ's probably staying then. Full support. What, now you're going to switch that in less than a week to AJ's gone? I just didn't really see that. I've asked them to perform a thorough assessment of our organization beginning today. That was another hint in this statement where it was like, okay, if the assessment's just beginning today, then we shouldn't expect AJ Preller to be fired today or sometime even later this week, probably. Because if it's just beginning today, this is a multi-day process, maybe even a multi-week process, right? We will make the changes necessary to play championship caliber baseball for our extraordinary fans in 2024. So what are the changes then? I'm thinking that the changes are on the business side, maybe. Eric Casenda, bringing him in, having him be an advisor to Eric Grupner to get the money under control. Business side, maybe some other smaller things, but does the fan base really care about that? Like, that's not something I'm probably going to be talking about for hours and hours and hours in the offseason about some of these business moves that they made, some changes that they made, right? What are the changes? Is it trading Juan Soto, lowering the payroll all the way down to $200 million from like 253? That's the change. Those are the changes. Is it being smarter with roster construction? Is it bringing in someone else that's non-biased and having them work under A.J. Preller or report directly to Peter Seidler and not to A.J. Preller? I don't see that happening, by the way, but I'm just throwing ideas out there. Like, take Peter Seidler, take the GM title off of A.J. and bring someone else in and have that person literally have a non-biased look at this organization. Someone that knows what they're talking about baseball-wise, because Eric Custenda, whatever his name is, all due respect to him, I've looked him up, looked up his background. It's not really like running a baseball team. It's more money-wise, right? Like managing money and risk and all that. So that, him being advisor to Eric Grupner, that makes sense. But bringing in someone else that's not already familiar with A.J. Preller, hasn't been in this organization, to run an assessment on this organization, that's probably something that's a necessary change, at least temporarily, for this offseason, maybe in the month of October here, before the offseason really gets underway after the World Series concludes. So yeah, that from me here after this Kevin Acee report, Bob Melvin, I'm thankful that he is returning. I think that's the best guy for this. A.J. Preller, I was at the point where it's like, why not make a move? But I understand Peter Seidler, the health issue. He loves A.J. Preller. AJ is the most familiar person with this organization, with this roster, and what needs to be done to make changes in the payroll situation. It might have took a little bit longer if you're bringing someone else in and you have to fire AJ. Maybe Peter Seidler, maybe he's not in that spot right now where he wants to make that move because of his health and everything that he'd have to go through. I think that Peter trusts Eric Grupner, but is Eric Grupner the right person to run a search for president of baseball operations and GM if Preller were to get canned? Because Eric Grupner, he's the CEO of the team. He's not. He has baseball opinions, obviously. He has talked to Kevin Acee about that. I was listening to Darren Smith's show with Kevin this week, and that's pretty clear to me. After that, Grupner has his opinions. And when I was at the Padres last homestand, I saw Kevin Acee talking with Eric Grupner on the field after batting practice for a good amount of time. So maybe Eric Grupner is one of Kevin Acee's sources here to provide some context on what is happening here, what is expected to happen, all of that. On Ben and Woods last week, Eric Grupner giving his thoughts about roster construction and more young and hungry players and winning can mask things. Like, Grupner has thoughts, but is he the right person to be, having an influence on the baseball operation stuff? And he does have bias because he is in the Padres organization as well, and he knows a lot more than we do about things that have happened. So I think bringing in an unbiased person is probably the best thing, but does Peter want to do that at this point? Would A.J. Preller accept that? And how would that go? It's easy for me to bring that up, but there's other people involved in this that maybe they wouldn't be the biggest fans of that. But I want what's best for this Padres organization. Like, if AJ has to go, then he has to go. Uh, if Bob Melvin had to go, then I guess he has to go, but I don't think that's the best thing for this Padres organization. So what changes? What are these necessary changes? If Bob Melvin stays, if AJ Preller stays, what are the necessary changes? That's what I am interested about here. When is the press conference going to happen? Because you have to speak, right? You have to have an end of season press conference, right? Every team in baseball does that. Last year, they wrapped it up with Melvin and Preller. I know things aren't great, but it might be good to have Melvin and Preller be up there at the same time, same table, and show some unity, even if it's like kind of like eyewash and it's not really real. Show some fake unity, show some unity, physical unity at the press conference, and show that you're on the same page, I guess, with your words, and then we can make some progress there. I'm hoping, obviously, from this Monday meeting that AJ and Bob, they were able to hash some things out. Like I said previously, like, be direct with each other, not go through Eric Grutner or go through someone else, but be direct. Like Bob telling AJ, I want you to stop doing this. And Bob admit some of the things that he has done wrong or some of the things that he can improve on. AJ, you admit some of the things that you can improve on. Maybe he is admitting that he'll step back on some things. Now, words are words, right? Like, actions speak louder than the words, but I think that's a start if both guys did end up, you know, coming a little bit to a compromise and having a productive conversation. Kevin Acee writes here, the men were involved in a meeting Monday, Preller and Melvin, that was described as productive by two people who were briefed on the meeting. So who are these two people who were briefed on the meeting? Like, I'm curious about that. Is it Josh Stein and Fred Ullman Jr., the assistant GMs? Is it Melvin's agent that Kevin Acee is talking to? Is it Eric Grutner? I thought Eric Grutner was supposed to be involved in this meeting that happened on Monday at Petco Park. Maybe Grutner was involved for only part of it, and maybe he left the room and had Preller and Melvin speak with each other, and then he went back and talked with those guys, and he got information and gives it to Kevin Acee. I don't know. Obviously, Kevin's not going to reveal his sources, but I'm just reading this stuff, and I'm just wondering. I'm sure Padres fans, some that are really reading this carefully, are wondering, okay, two people who were briefed on the meeting. Who are those two people that were briefed on the meeting? They've got to be pretty important people, I would assume, in this situation, because I don't think Preller and Melvin are going and telling everyone in the organization about what happened in this meeting. So I think it's going to be a process. If both of these guys end up staying, it's going to be a process. And this relationship, it might not be fixed ever. Like, when it's being described as civil war and unfixable by a player in there, like some of the things that came out, it's like this is heading towards a divorce. It might not be a divorce in 2023 right now, or at the beginning of 2024, or in the middle of 2024, but it's coming to a divorce at some point. It could be at the end of 2024 when Bob Melvin's contract is up and Padres say, we're not renewing your contract, like the Angels did with Phil Nevin. And not that these are the same situations, but just we're not renewing the contract, and that's how the divorce happens. But it's heading towards it. I don't think that this is something that's going to get fixed permanently, like they will be best buddies. But I'm hoping that they, like this meeting, yeah, it was productive, and they're able to start, putting themselves in a good position for this offseason and be ready to attack this offseason. And there's going to be limits on what can happen payroll wise, is what it seems like with this Padres organization. So hopefully Melvin and Preller, it's not just Preller going and making a signing. Hopefully it's Melvin and Preller being on the same page, and they're in touch constantly about, like, Preller talking with Melvin this offseason. Is this reliever, is this someone that you like? Is he a flexible reliever? Is this someone that you would like? This bench piece that I'm talking to, is this someone that you think is a flexible piece? This is someone that can play multiple positions. Is this someone that you want? I think Preller probably ran Carpenter and Cruz down to Bob Melvin, like saying like this is going to happen or this might happen. What are your thoughts on that? But I would guess that the communication wasn't as good as it probably could have been about some of these roster moves that were going to be happening, some of these additions that were made in the offseason. So hopefully Bob Melvin can have a good input on these decisions because at the end of the day, this is the team that he is going to be managing if he indeed stays, like this report says from Kevin about he's expected to stay. If he does stay, this is the team that he's dealing with day in and day out. So I want him to have an input. And I don't want this to just be A.J. Preller, um, making the roster move, making the roster and not giving Bob Melvin um, as much input as he probably deserves based on how much experience he has in the major leagues and the fact that 2023 was a failure, you know? Um, by the way, I will be putting out a pretty uh, decent, I would say, decent length video on the bad moments from 2023 sometime this week. So that'll probably remind Padres fans, those that are watching this or listening to this, that will probably remind you of how bad this season was and some of the players that were on this team. And it's like, oh wow, yeah, he was on this team. Okay. Did Bob Melvin want him on this team? I don't know. My point is, and I know I made a lot of points here already on this show, and I know I've gone in a lot of different directions, and I'm sure the chat will bring me in some different directions as well here in a little bit. But my point is, I think Bob Melvin deserves to have some input on this roster construction. I get it. It's not his job to make the roster. That's AJ's job at the end of the day. His job is to manage the roster with what AJ gives him. But AJ didn't give him a good enough roster this year. That seemed pretty evident, at least depth wise, flexibility wise, versatility wise. It wasn't good enough. So it's like Bomel gave him that shot and it didn't work out. Bomel, hopefully he can have some input here on the roster. Another thing that I wanted to get to here was Manny Machado. This was also a part of Kevin Acee's article here. This was actually the first thing on the article. Manny Machado underwent extensor tendon repair surgery on Tuesday. So the details there from Kevin Acee here is that this surgery was in Los Angeles by Dr. Neil Elatrosh, who I believe is the Dodgers team doctor or team physician. But don't put any stock into that like, oh, he's going to mess up Manny Machado. He intentionally is going to mess up this surgery. No. He wouldn't have his job if he would be doing that, right? And I believe he performed on Bryce Harper. He performs on a ton of guys. I think he does a lot of arm surgeries on pitchers, on big-time players. Like, he is the go-to guy on the West Coast, I think. So don't put any stock into, oh, he works for the Dodgers. But it was performed in Los Angeles on Tuesday. Machado is expected to be ready to participate in spring training, though he could be limited through the early part of the season. The recovery time provided by the team is 4 to 6 months. So I am happy. First off, I'm happy that Manny Machado finally got this surgery. I thought he should have got this surgery when the Padres were 11 games under 500. Or when he first admitted like how bad this elbow injury was, and he was DHing only. He wasn't going to third base. Once he left third base, it's like, dude, shut it down. You're not making the postseason. And even if you do, like, you're not at full health. You got pitching injuries. Cronenworth's out. Kim was dealing with something. Bogarts is probably not 100%. Like, you have a long way to go. Like, it's just not going to happen. This is a lost year. Go get the surgery. And then the 5 to 7 month recovery time frame was being thrown around. This is 4 to 6 here. So we'll see. Manny sometimes comes back quicker from the rehab than most humans do because he works his butt off to accelerate that. Maybe spends more hours of the day on it than someone else. So that makes his rehab time a little bit shorter. He's putting in the same amount of work maybe, but it's just shorter because he condenses it. Instead of doing 6 hours a day, maybe he does 8, and that adds up. Little things like that. Maybe he does 12. I'm just making up a number. So hopefully, this return, he comes back 4 6 months. So 4 months from now is February 3rd. 6 months from now is like April 3rd. And is this recovery timeline him playing third base? Because if he's going to be limited at the start of the season, March 20th is opening day in Korea, by the way, 2 games in Korea. If he is limited there, I don't think that's that huge of a deal as long as he is in the lineup and he feels good hitting wise. But how long is he going to be out positionally? Because if he's out positionally for the first month of the year or something like that, then Kim is at third, Bogarts gets to stay at short, Cronenworth's at second. Who are they bringing in to play first base? That's a question, obviously. Xander Bogaerts doesn't want to play first base, so do they have Cronenworth go back to play first base to start the year, and then does he turn into a utility guy? If they have Kim at second, Bogarts at short, Manny at third. Jackson Merrill, what about him? Is he an opening day guy? I don't think so, but maybe. Is he a utility guy, Chris Taylor type guy, middle of the season when he gets called up? Where is Tatis playing? Is he in center? If so, who's in right field? Is Soto still on the team? This isn't just Manny now. That's obviously a lot of Padres just roster questions here in the offseason. There's a lot of questions with this team. But as for Manny, 4 to 6 months, I don't think that's the end of the world. And if he has to take it slow in spring training, that might be the best. Because he didn't really take it that slow in spring training because he was playing in the World Baseball Classic, right? So maybe that contributed to some things. I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for Manny and be like, well, he had a bad year because of the WBC. Definitely not saying that. He had a down year. It needs to be better in 2024. No doubt about that. It was a disappointing season for Manny Machado. Totally. No excuses. I think mentioning the injuries is only fair to Manny because he was definitely dealing with a lot of pain and playing through a lot of pain. But he will still say that, deep down, he knows that it was a disappointing season and he needs to be better in 2024. And so hopefully this surgery, there won't be like limits on him in 2024. At least like for the majority of the year, maybe at the beginning, he's only DHing, but that's what matters the most. Like as long as Manny's in there opening day in the lineup, I think that's what matters the most. And then when he plays the field, be 100% when he gets to play third base. Don't try to come back early and be like, no, I'm fine. I'm almost there. No, I want you fully 100%, but I'm glad that he got the surgery. I was getting to that point where it's like, Manny, the season's not going anywhere this year. Why don't just go get the surgery? You're at a point where you could be hurting 2024's team as well. Like, as long as he is back by the beginning of 2024 here, then I'll be like, okay, I understood. Like, you want to be a leader. You want to be in there every day until you were mathematically eliminated. I can respect that. I still don't think it was the right decision. But at least I can be like, okay, well, he was right. He's back for the beginning of the year. That's what matters the most, right? But we'll see. That is one of the question marks. There's roster question marks about who is going to be coming back. How is this person going to be replaced? Like Josh Hader, like Blake Snell, right? What's going to happen with Trent Grisham? Guys on the roster, are there going to be trades? Payroll-wise, are they going to get below $200 million? Are they going to get below the luxury tax threshold? Which, yes, they will. I would be shocked if they don't get below the $237 million luxury tax number. But how far below that number do they get? Obviously, Michael Wacha, Blake Snell, Nick Martinez, Seth Lugo. Obviously, like I said, Trent Grisham, Tatis position, Bogart's position, Cronenworth position, his health, Musgrove's health, Darvish's health. There's a lot here. A lot of questions. Steven Wilson was out, right? So we'll see. Gary Sanchez, Luis Camposano, starting catcher. Who's going to be the backup? Are they going to bring in more veterans? Bench. How are they going to fill out the bench? More flexibility there. We'll see. It's going to be a long off season, and this is another question mark. Manny and his health. I know Manny is going to be motivated to come back and probably, be like, this is the real Manny Machado. And I didn't just get my paycheck and then stop trying. Like, we're back. And he knows that 2023 was a failure. It was a massive disappointment. I think regardless of what he tells the media, he has to know deep down that this was a failure of a season. Especially when he was up on that stage at FanFest talking about a parade that was going to be happening when they win the World Series in 2023. Obviously, that didn't happen, right? He knows it was a disappointment. He knows it was a failure. And he better be, I think he will be motivated to come back and have a really good 2024, just like a lot of guys hopefully will be motivated to come back and have a strong 2024. Because if it was already bad in 2023 here, losing. If they can't make a deep playoff run next year, that's another year that you wasted. Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Fernando Tatis Jr., Juan Soto, if he's here in 2024, that's another question. That's another year wasted. So, yeah, they got to go on a deep run at least in 2024. So, Manny, please be well. Wishing for the best in the offseason. And get back to work as soon as you can. Once you're fully healthy, don't rush back here. We need you for the majority of 2024. All right. Before I get to the chat, just want to give yourselves a reminder. SeatGeek code Talking Friars, $20 off your order. If you're out of town, you're not watching this in San Diego, maybe you're in another playoff city or another city that has some big sports going on, you can use that code still. It's not just for Padres games, but code Talking Friars, $20 off your order. And Underdog Fantasy, you get a 100% deposit match up to $100. Use my code Talking Friars there as well. Click the link in the description if you don't want to use the code. I believe that the link in the description for Underdog Fantasy will work. There's playoff pick'ems. There's other sport pick'ems. There's drafts, so check them out. BreakingT.com, click the link in the description there. Some great San Diego sports swag. Padres, Aztecs, Wave. The Wave, by the way, they are back home. Not this coming weekend, but next weekend for the final regular season match of their season before the playoffs start. Gaglio and Bros, their main location on Friars Road. Gaglio and Bros, they got their website link in the description there as well. The best cheesesteaks in San Diego. Great garlic fries, cheesesteak fries, cheese fries. Check them out. And then Foco, some great Padres bobbleheads and collectibles there. You can click the link in the description there. Thank you to all the partners who support this show, support this channel, and those that are watching or listening, please go in return and support them if you can, and check out some of the stuff they have. Some great stuff. All right. Let's get to the chat without further ado. I'm sure there's a lot of chatter going on about the direction of this Padres team. Again, if you're just joining here, Bob Melvin, he is expected back in 2024, just like A.J. Preller is expected back in 2024. Real quick, I want to check social media to see if there's anything else because I don't want to be behind on anything here. Terry Francona officially just stepped down as the Guardians manager. So there's another managerial opening. And I believe the playoff games are still going on right now. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I mean, Evan Longoria made one heck of a play late in this game. D-backs had a 4-3 lead, I want to say. They came back. They were down 3-0 against Corbin Burns. They come back. And now they're up 6-3 in the ninth. So looks like they're about to take a 1-0 series lead there. So they're representing the NL West. I mean, I'm rooting for Milwaukee because I don't want other NL West teams winning. But, yeah, Christian Walker came through with a big double. Corbin Carroll scored. Tommy Pham scored. So 6-3 there. The Phillies, they're up 3-1 on the Marlins. Probably going to take a 1-0 series lead there. Texas beat Tampa today 4-0. They're up 1-0. And then Minnesota beat Toronto 3-1. I know I had a lot of happy family members that are living in Minnesota. Their team had not won a playoff game since 2004. A long time since winning a playoff game. So, yeah, Target Field, what an atmosphere that was watching that game today. Holy cow. It seemed, I mean, the way that people were making it seem like how cheap the tickets were, like it wasn't going to be that full. It was pretty darn full. You saw some empty seats at the top, but it was pretty full for a Tuesday afternoon baseball game. Minnesota and Toronto, they showed up. So props to the Minnesota fans. And that reminded me of the Padres fans during those day games. I know it wasn't a lot of day games because the Padres were the West Coast team, and so they were playing usually at night. But for the day games like the NLCS and all that, like fans really showed up. So that reminded me of that. So yeah, congrats to all the teams that won today. Obviously, hoping that the Padres are in this spot in 2024. Lefty Missile says, if they're going to run it back again, then at least try bringing back Soto and Snell. If it doesn't work, only then you can look to decrease salary. Just one more run with Soto. With Snell, I mean, I don't see them wanting to pay him $180 million or whatever Snell's going to ask for. And with the payroll going down, it seems like it has to go down. By the reports, it's going to go down. How are they going to sign Blake Snell and then put more depth in this Padres organization on this roster? Because there's Lugo, there's Martinez, there's Waka. Decisions have to be made there. And then you probably want more depth pieces after that. And Snell would take up a lot of salary. Boris Client, he's going to want more than Carlos Rodon. He's going to win the NL Cy Young Award this year. Let's say he asks for $100 million, or not $100 million, $180 million, okay? Which is more than Rodon asked for, and he asked for it for 7 years. That's still $25 million a year. That doesn't seem like outrageous, but that's still 25 mil that you have to add on to the payroll, right? Because Snell, that's more money than he was making this year, right? He was making what, 16 mil, I think, this year? Something like that. Let me double check that here. Blake Snell, contract. Yeah, $16 million. So that's not even that bad of an AAV for Blake Snell after winning the Cy Young, which I think the AAV will be higher than that, but I just threw that number out there. 7 years, 180 mil. Do the Padres want to be paying someone till they're 38 who has been inconsistent overall with San Diego Padres? And the Padres know that Blake Snell's not going to repeat that season next year. I guarantee you he's not going to repeat this season next season. It was a hell of a season, but he's not going to repeat that. And the Padres, they need to lower the payroll. I just don't see that happening. Soto, they have him under contract, though. And Soto in a walk year, that's someone that other teams don't want to be facing. And that's someone that I want to have on my baseball team and at least give it a shot. You gave up so much. You're not going to get anything close back for 1 year of Juan Soto. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get someone's top 3 or 4 prospects back for 1 year of Juan Soto. It's not going to happen. So I'm at the point with Soto where it's like, yeah, $30 million, that's a lot that you're going to have to pay Soto probably next season, but give it a shot. Try it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I don't want Peter Seidler to have regrets. I don't want A.J. Preller to have regrets. I don't want other guys in the clubhouse being like, man, what if A.J. just kept Juan Soto? Right? I don't want that. It's one thing if things aren't working out before the trade deadline next year, like Snell and Hader this year, and it was like, trade them. It's not the year. But we would be what-ifing ourselves if Snell and Hader weren't even on the team to start this season. We would say, oh, man, what if we had Snell and Hader? Especially if Snell put up this same year somewhere else, or if Hader had a sub-2 ERA somewhere else. What if, you know? So, yeah, Juan Soto, he had a little bit of a disappointing season this season, and he still is going to get MVP votes. Not like number 1 MVP, but top 10 MVP votes. He's still going to get that for a little bit of a disappointing season. So, unless he gets hurt next year, he's going to, I'm pretty sure he's going to have a pretty darn good season. Devin says, nothing is confirmed yet. Don't want to jump to conclusions yet. Yeah, he's talking about Kevin Acee reporting. Melvin expected to return. Preller expected to return. Yes, that has not been reported. It's been reported. I shouldn't say that. It has not been published officially by the San Diego Padres. There hasn't been a press conference or anything like that by the Padres themselves. You're right. But Kevin Acee is around the team. He has sources in that organization, and he has been wrong sometimes before. But would Kevin Acee put this out if he had any sense that this was going to be wrong? I don't think you put this out if there's any sense that you think that Melvin's not returning or Preller's not returning, right? I mean, Dennis Lin will probably have something out at some point this week, I would think. Probably saying something similar, I would think. It would be weird for Dennis Lin to come out later this week and be like, A.J. Preller not expected to return, neither is Bob Melvin. They're going to blow this thing up. After Acee said this, I don't see that happening. And some fans, they don't want to, maybe they don't want to trust Kevin Acee, but this is being reported. The entire Padres fan base is waiting on what's going to happen here with A.J. Preller and Bob Melvin. So I'm going to talk about it. And if they're expected to return, like Kevin is saying here, I don't have sources in this organization. I'm a Padres fan. I'm not in that business of having sources and stuff. Like, no, I'm just reacting to this news being reported by a beat writer, expected to return. So I'm giving my thoughts on if they do return. Is this the right decision? Devin says, glad that Manny got surgery today. Should be back in time for spring training. Sure hope so. Iron Swan says, if we're doing this again, we better hear more news on A.J. taking Bomel out for dinner to get along or something. Yeah, like I said earlier, I don't think this is something that's going to get fixed permanently. I don't think this is something that's ever going to get repaired 100%. And they're going to be best buddies. But just make it work for one more season. And hopefully Bob can have a little bit more input on some roster construction things. Not as much as A.J. because that's not his job, but more collaboration happening here instead of going behind each other's backs. Direct communication. That's what I want here. And hopefully both can admit some things that they need to improve on, and they can improve on those things and be better for it in 2024. Jesse says, plain and simple, A.J. needs to let Melvin coach. No micromanaging. I agree. Devin says, Bomel staying is the right decision, just like Soto contract. Walk year next year, Padres having to run it back at least one more time with Bomel. I think Bomel deserves that as well. And again, going back to selling it to the fan base, right? How can you sell that you're going all in to win a World Series if you replace Bomel with like a rookie manager, you trade Juan Soto, Snow and Hader are gone. How are you selling that, yeah, we're all in just like going into 2023? You can't sell that. Those people in the organization know you can't sell that. Brock says, since our Padres are done, who are you guys pulling for in the playoffs? I'm pulling for the Twins. I have family in Minnesota. I know some people gave me a hard time earlier this summer or in the summer when I was visiting family in Minnesota and I had a Twins hat on for like one or two post-game reactions. But I was visiting family in Minnesota and they're an American League team. It's not like they're a Padres rival. There's no rivalry between the Padres and the Twins. So, yes, the Padres are my team. No doubt about that. The Padres are my team. I wouldn't be doing this almost every day if the Padres, weren't my team. And the Twins, whenever the Padres aren't playing the Twins, if they, if they're playing, they have a game on, I want them to win. I want my family in Minnesota to have joy about their favorite baseball team. National League, I'm not really rooting for anyone just because it's the National League. Definitely not rooting for any team but the Dodgers. If any team but the Dodgers wins, it won't be the end of the world. If the Dodgers win, I'm obviously going to be pissed off because I hate the Dodgers. I'm getting asked for my World Series projection pick. I said on my Baseball Struck YouTube channel, I don't upload there as often, but you guys can go check that out if you want. I said this morning, I believe I said Braves Astros. I know, going out on a limb, huh? I know, not going out on a limb. I get it, but I think the Twins are going to get past the Blue Jays, and I said this before they won today. I love the bullpen. It's underrated. The lineup, I think, is underrated. Sonny Gray, Pablo Lopez, I like that. I think I had the Rays getting past the Rangers. That doesn't look great right now. I think I said Brewers past the D-backs. And the other matchup, Phillies past the Marlins. Braves beating the Phillies, Dodgers beating the Brewers, Braves beating the Dodgers, Astros beating the Twins. Um, at what's the other matchup that I said? I'm forgetting the other part of the bracket here. Let me pull up this bracket. Okay, here it is. Oh yeah, Orioles. That's the team I'm blanking on. The 1 seed in the AL, who won over 100 games this year. Orioles beating the Rays. And then Astros beating the Orioles in the ALCS. Then Astros losing to the Braves in the World Series. That was my pick. I know it's not going out on a limb or anything like that, but the Braves they just feel like they're unstoppable. But I think a lot of people said last year that the Dodgers were unstoppable, and look what happened, right? So really it's about who is the hottest team, really. And sometimes injuries obviously play a factor. Iron Swan says AJ better work his scouting magic again by getting cheap, nobody pitchers who produce better than expectations. He does have a little bit of a track record of doing that. Maybe it's names that you know of, but maybe some people think like they can't close anymore. They're not on this like high salary, past the prime, and they perform pretty well. Robert Suarez, that wasn't, at least I don't think, I'm not talking about the extension or the new deal. I'm talking about when the Padres brought him over. That was not seen as a flashy move around baseball. Luis Garcia, that wasn't seen as a flashy move. I know a lot of Padres fans don't like Luis Garcia. I see that on social media. But when you look at the numbers, for the most part, he hasn't been that bad. Past years, Trevor Rosenthal, Mark Melancon, Kirby Yates, Brad Hand, ended up having those guys go away, but they weren't on huge contracts when they were here. Drew Pomerantz, obviously, bigger contract, bad. I get that. But when he was on the mound, he pitched really good. So yeah, pitching, hopefully, the scouting magic, cheap, maybe lesser known pitchers. Seth Lugo, Michael Walker, those guys weren't unknown, but they were question marks and they weren't long-term big. They weren't like the splashy move. They weren't Taijuan Walker or Carlos Rodon last offseason. So yeah, things like that are probably going to happen again for A.J. Preller if he stays, which it seems like is what is going to happen here with this Padres team in this offseason. Steven says Ben doesn't seem to be aware that Manny lobbied for Buck Showalter twice. Both times the Padres organization pacified Manny with Oriole coaches, but not Showalter. So what are you saying? Like Buck Showalter is going to replace Bob Melvin? You think that's going to happen? Or what? What would be interesting, and this wouldn't happen, I don't think, but imagine having, because Manny loves Buck, imagine having Manny convince Buck to be like Bob Melvin's bench coach and Ryan Christian move down to be like an assistant coach, but not be the bench coach. Or like Melvin and Showalter be both associate managers and there's no like real manager and one can handle one side of things. So I don't know. That just idea popped into my head. Imagine if Buck is like, no, I'm fine with not being a manager and going and being a co-manager or something alongside Bob Melvin and just creating like this coaching staff super team, veteran coaching staff super team or something. I know Showalter just got let go. And I think Buck Showalter, it doesn't seem like he's done. It seems like he still has something in the tank. I think I remember seeing a quote about that from maybe over the weekend when he got let go. So I feel like he could end up with a team like the Angels or the Giants. What are the other Guardians? I feel like Buck would end up being more with a bigger market team like the Giants. But yeah, it's like, yeah, Manny, he likes Buck. Yes, he does. So if Melvin were to go, I could see Manny advocating for Buck Showalter. But is Buck Showalter a move that gets the Padres better than what they were with Bob Melvin? Remember, Bob Melvin's the one that beat Buck Showalter last year in the postseason. Buck Showalter's the one that looked like an idiot in the postseason last year. You know? So I think that would be more seen as a lateral move. And would Joe Musgrove be very happy about that? Would other Padres players be that happy about that? Would Padres fans be that happy about that? No. Does A.J. Preller care what Padres fans think? I'm not so sure if he does, I don't think he should. He should make the move that he thinks is the best for the Padres organization, not what is going to save face, what is going to be the most favorite move among Padres fans and what's going to get Padres fans the most excited. He should make the right move for the Padres organization because that's his job. But I'm just saying, yeah, Buck, that would be very interesting for sure. Iron Swan says Bomo will be fine going into his third year. He now has a good feel for the clubhouse and the players, so I hope he sparks something next year. Will AJ let Bomo run the team? Yes, that's obviously a big question. Lizzie agrees. Grupner is Acee's source. I feel like he's one of them. And it's limited. Like me seeing who Kevin Acee talks to on the field and stuff, it's limited. And he obviously probably has a lot of text conversations that we don't see and phone conversations that we don't see. But it's just interesting. I'm just bringing it up. There's negative things being written about A.J. Preller. Eric Grupner backs some of those things up on the radio. And he's supposed to be involved in some of these meetings. Probably doesn't want to put his name on something if it's critical of A.J. Preller or something. So he could just be a source inside the Padres organization, someone that would be familiar with what was said in these meetings, how productive these meetings were. Just pointing it out. Kevin Acee's he's never going to admit sources. Eric Grupner's never going to admit that he was a source if someone asks him or anything like that. But it's just, okay, is it reckless speculation? Maybe, but I'm just bringing it up. Someone brings up here, Fourth Horseman says, Padres need a shakeup to get players' attitudes in check. Yeah, but if Bob Melvin can't fix it, then who can? Like I said the other day, I might have said it yesterday. I feel like this is a player thing, like player accountability. They have to look themselves in the mirror. Can I be more of a team player? Did I do my best to be a team player, winning first? We before me. Did I do that to my fullest in 2023? And if I didn't, how can I change that for 2024? I don't think that's Bob Melvin. I'm pretty sure Bob Melvin has already tried. Like if he saw this happening this year, what, do you think he just let it happen? He was just going to sit there and let it happen? No, he probably had conversations with people. But at the end of the day, the players are the ones that can change it, ultimately. They're the ones that have to do it. Steven says, Bob Melvin and A.J. may not have been at odds the way the media sensualized it. It's a long word. Sensualized it. I think that's what Steven's saying here. They created all this hype when there is no actual facts about Bob not being able to deal with A.J. But these writers, they're not going to name sources, or else sources would not be giving them quotes. So if they want the information, these sources have to be anonymous. That's just the way it is. The players in there are not going to put their name on something that is critical of something, of someone that is high up in the organization, because they don't want to lose their job, right? They don't want to have it be a bad look on them. So no actual facts. I mean, it's not just Kevin Acee reporting something. It's Dennis Lin and Ken Rosenthal reporting it as well. There are other people that are hearing things about how the relationship, it's not great. It's one of the worst kept secrets in baseball. Civil war, unfixable. It's not just one report out there. Not just one thing. Lizzie says, maybe all this talk about Preller and Melvin is to distract us from what a failure 2023 was, especially if nothing changes and both Preller and Melvin are back. So they knew all this time that both guys were going to be back. It's just all this talk, all of these leaks are to distract us from 2023, the failure. You can't distract us from going back to 2023 this season and saying that it was a failure. Regardless of what this Padres team does, we're still going to sit back and say it was a failure and it was super disappointing. So I disagree with that. Like, they're not just going to create all this stuff to distract us from what a failure 2023 was. The season just happened. The postseason's happening right now, and we're watching these games, and we want the Padres to be in it. It's still fresh in our minds. So I disagree with that. JD's third says Merrill should be September call-up next season. Very well could be. Maybe it won't be. I don't think it'll be the beginning of the year. Maybe it'll be All-Star break. Maybe it'll be a little before that. But September, that could happen as well. Have him, get some more time at Double-A or get almost a full year at Triple-A, more at bats. And maybe it just might be a roster constructor thing. Roster construction, not roster constructor. Roster construction thing. Like, if the Padres, they have a full infield and nobody has gotten hurt and health is fine, and in the minors, Jackson Merrill continues to play the infield, does it make sense to have Jackson Merrill come up and just sit on the bench when he's your top like 2 prospect in the system? I think Salas is 1. You probably want him, if you're calling him up, you want him to play every day. So if there's a spot that's open for him to play every day, then you can call him up. But if there isn't, and you believe in the guys on the team, then you should probably keep him down. Or else you're just wasting the service time. You're wasting those years that he's not getting paid anything, which is obviously critical with the amount of money that's spent on other guys on this roster, right? Captain Zano asks, hey, Ben, do you think Grish will be back? First off, hello. Right now, I think that Grish will be back. It could be as a platoon, as a bench guy. But yes, right now, I think he will be back. I have not gone deep into the available outfielders on the free agent market and what options are there. But part of my reasoning about just my gut right now, Grish being back, is because he is still really good defensively. He still has the power potential. And Tatis played really well in right field. And if Soto's in left, they probably want a good defensive center fielder in center, which is Trent Grisham. And is the offense going to be as bad as it was this season? The big guys in the lineup, just the lineup in general. So if the Padres are going to bank on the lineup not being as bad as it was this year, and it be better in 2024, is Grish playing just really good defense at center, bottom of the order, not doing that great offensively, but is it going to be that big of a deal if other guys in the lineup are doing their jobs, right? Because it feels like, to me right now, Grish is who he is. He'll have some power, good defensively in center field. Could you have an upgrade? Probably, yeah. But I don't think they're going to trade Grish and not have a plan. Like, if they're going to trade Grish, it's probably because they've already made a free agent addition or they've already made a trade for an everyday outfielder. They're not going to trade Grish and then be like, all right, we're going to go get an outfielder, because then they could end up with a worse outfield because the guy they thought they were going to go get or someone who they had eyes on ends up going to another team because the Padres, with the payroll limitations, they can't go give that guy the amount of money that another team is giving that guy, So right now, hopefully I answered that okay for you. Yeah, I think Grish will be back. Profar, I would welcome Profar back to this Padres team as a bench guy. Depth. I don't know about starting every day, but yes, I would welcome him back. Flexible, can play most of the season if you need him to. If injuries happen, he can play the outfield, can play the infield. He can DH if you absolutely need him to. Can pinch hit. Yeah, I would welcome Profar back. Not on a big salary, obviously, but like 1-year deal. He's comfortable here. And when Profar came back, I was reading this, I think, in the UT within the last week. I think in Kevin Acee's tidbits in his Padres daily newsletter. The Padres, with Profar on their team, they played really good baseball. What was it 19-7, or is that their September record? I'm going to try to find this piece here to try to find this tidbit. And I'm not saying Jerks and Profar is the reason why they started playing really good in September, because you had better offensive performances from someone like Juan Soto, from someone like Xander Bogaerts. Like there were the offense was just better. Maybe this is it. The Padres Daily from no, it's not. Wait. Yes, it is. Padres went 16-5 from that day to the end of the season. That day being September 8th, when Jerks and Profar joined the Padres. 16-5, excuse me. Oh man. I still have it. Don't know if it's allergies or what, but yeah, still not feeling that great. So please bear with me there on that. But yeah, getting back to Profar, like they were playing better with him on the team. And he is someone that I think Bob Melvin likes having on his roster because he can do a lot of different things, which was lacking on the bench at some points, especially early on in this Padres season. Captain Zano says, I think Kim gets traded. Does that make the Padres' chances improve, though, if you trade Kim to win in 2024? I get it. Like if so you save what, $7 million in 24 if you trade Kim, but how are you replacing him? Right? And it does make sense, but you must be banking on Manny being able to stay healthy, Bogarts being able to stay healthy, and Crony being able to stay healthy and having a bounce back season in 2024, which isn't a guarantee. And Kim, he keeps trending upwards. So if you want to win in 2024, is that someone that you want to go trade? I think it would have to be a good package coming back if you're going to trade Ha-Seong Kim. You're not just trading him for anything because he keeps getting better. And he's someone that he can play pretty much every day. He can play shortstop. If Manny can't go defensively, or he can play third base, excuse me. If Manny can't go defensively at the start of the year, like he's a really valuable piece to this Padres team. One of the few bright spots to this Padres team this season. And you want to get rid of him for what? It better be for like some good controllable starting pitching or a controllable starting outfielder, something. And if you're gonna say, well, Merrill's coming up, Crony's coming back, Bogarts, Manny, like Matthew Batten, Eggy Rosario, it's not the end of the world. That's not the end of the world. Okay. I'll buy that a little bit. But it's kind of like Soto. I'm not saying Kim's as good as Soto. He's not going to get obviously $500 million in free agency like Soto wants to get. But that's a guy that helped this Padres team this season. He was one of the bright spots in this Padres season. And that's a guy I want on my team if I'm trying to go win the whole thing. And the Padres should still be in that mode. They can decrease payroll and still be in a good spot to go win the whole thing. It's about making the right choices. And I think keep giving it a shot with Ha-Seong Kim in 2024, just like with Soto, is probably the right choice. If you were going to trade Kim, no, Kim is probably at his highest level, highest value. So maybe that's what the Padres are thinking because he keeps trending upwards. But he also doesn't have 2 years of control like he had last offseason. He only has 1 year of control. So I think we will hear that reports will come out about the Padres maybe listening on Ha-Seong Kim or other teams being interested in Ha-Seong Kim. But my gut thinks that Kim doesn't get traded right now. Again, a lot of things can change on that, but right now I don't think Kim gets traded. All right, continuing to go through the chat here. Lizzie says everyone playing out of position doesn't make the Padres better, but Preller couldn't land players we needed, and we ended up with Xander. Okay, that's I think a lot of people are hitting on how I was not happy with Xander Bogaerts' comment about him not wanting to move to first base, and I just want him to be more of a team player. And I still stand behind that. Like, you got your money. I get it. He's not a first baseman, But Jake Cronenworth wasn't a first baseman, a full-time first baseman, but he worked his butt off to be a full-time first baseman. And I think he was pretty serviceable in his first year. And Xander Bogaerts is a bigger target at first base than Jake Cronenworth. Cronenworth is a better second baseman than he is first baseman. Ha-Seong Kim is one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball, one of the best defensive players, period, in baseball. I think he's a better defensive shortstop than Xander Bogaerts is. So if you're going by the best defensive alignment and you don't bring in a first baseman, and it's Croney, Kim, Bogaerts, and Manny as your four infielders, I think the best defensive alignment could be Xander at first, Croney at second, Kim at short, and Manny at third when Manny is fully healthy. Like, we don't know how this could turn out unless Bogaerts tries playing first base. And even if the Padres decide to not have Bogaerts play first base, and I don't think that he will be playing first base come opening day next year. But even if they don't, it's still, I just don't like the quote of, I don't want that, when you've already gotten your money. I saw in the comments on YouTube today, some people were saying that Bogaerts, he got his money to play shortstop. Yes, but my point is, he got his money. Things can change. You should do what is best for this Padres team. And some would argue what is best is not for Bogaerts to play first. Okay, have that. You can have that opinion for sure. And there's probably some in the Padres organization that share that same opinion. But if the Padres ultimately think that Bogaerts at first is the best thing to help this Padres team win and save runs, roster construction, all that, then why should Bogaerts be opposed to that when he's not playing for a contract anymore? The Padres gave him more money than any other team would have given him. He should be grateful to have this contract with the Padres, this much money. And all that's left for Bogaerts to do with the Padres is go win now. That's all that's left, like, in his career now, right? Because I get it, shortstops will probably get more money in free agency than a first baseman that hits like 20 home runs a year. But he already got his money. That's my thing. And I understand that he's going to be opposed to it, but I don't want that. And the closer you move, I'm moving closer to the bench. So I don't want to move there too quick. Dude, you're going into the second year next year of this deal. They're not putting you on the bench. That's just my viewpoint on it. That's all. And yes, you can criticize and be like, well, we didn't need Xander Bogaerts. So we should be pointing this back at A.J. Preller because we never even needed Xander Bogaerts. And I understand that. But Manny had not been signed to an extension yet. And there's been reports that the front office was willing to let Manny finish this thing out. Seidler's the one that really wanted to go get that extension done in spring training. So that contract was given out with no guarantee Manny was returning. There was no Cronenworth extension yet, even though Cronenworth was already going to be here. But it seems like Preller, the Padres, they wanted to have the best lineup possible for 2024. And they probably wanted to bring in another star, so they knew that he was going to be here long-term as part of this core, because it wasn't guaranteed that other guys were going to stay. And they missed out on Jose Abreu. They weren't going to overpay for Josh Bell. They let Brandon Drury go to the Angels. They weren't going to have Will Myers come play first base. Jurickson Profar was asking for too much, and they probably didn't want him being the everyday first baseman. So they went and got Xander Bogaerts. They tried for Trey Turner. They tried for Aaron Judge. Would Padre fans have been okay if they signed Aaron Judge? What about Trey Turner? I was fine with it at the time. I didn't like the years. I didn't like the total money. But I understood that the Padres were trying to get the best lineup out there. Xander Bogaerts last season hit 300, multiple World Series titles, respected around the game, another veteran. He's in his prime. Like, all right, they're going all in. They're trying to win here. I like it. Maybe not going to like it at the back end. And yeah, this year was definitely a disappointing season for sure. And I think those that think that Xander was not even necessary, you're probably winning the argument right now for sure. Because 1 year in, It did not look great. It does not look great. But it's 1 year in. It's like the Cronenworth thing. I'm not going to give up on these two guys 1 year into this. And Cronenworth, it's not even 1 year into this because the extension technically starts next season. But I'm not going to give up on these guys. I could be pissed off with their performances, like a lot of Padres fans are, but I'm not going to give up on these guys after 1 year. Oh, come on. Trevor Bauer's being brought up in this chat? Jeez. Come on now. I'm not even going to comment on that. I think people know where I stand on that. MC says, your show title brought me here. You're positive they're both staying, or is it speculation? I'm not. I saw a video put out today saying that Bob Melvin is returning. Like he will return in 2023. That's not what I'm saying because that is not what is being reported. Bob Melvin will return to the Padres in 2024. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you what Kevin Acee is reporting. He is expected to return. And I think if this ends up being the correct move, I think this is the right move to have Bob Melvin stay and be the manager of the Padres at least through 2024 and giving this another shot. That's what I'm saying. So technically, yes, I guess it's speculation. It's reporting from Kevin Acee of the Union Tribune. He's a beat writer for the Padres. That's what I'm doing. I'm not saying it's slam dunk Melvin's returning. I guess I'm not even saying slam dunk A.J. Preller's returning because I'm just reading reports like all the other Padres fans are and reacting to the reports. They're expected to return. That's what it is. The title, it says expected to bring back. I didn't say that they are coming back, expected. That's, yeah, just to clarify there for anyone that's just coming on or wondering, yes, expecting to come back. It has not been like officially announced or there's no press conference or anything like that right now, as of now. Sammy Sosa for hitting coach. Jeez Louise. Yeah, how'd Mark McGuire work out? Remember that time? That was wild. What is he doing nowadays? Mark McGuire? I wonder what he's doing nowadays. How about Fernando Tatis Sr. to come be a coach, huh? Wasn't he coaching up Ronald Acuna Jr. before he went and had this historical season? I don't know if Tatis Sr. would actually want to do that every day. And maybe that would create more problems because Tatis's dad is with Tatis every day. And maybe he would only, or maybe he'd give like preferential treatment to Tatis or something like that, or not focus on other guys or whatever. But that has been, I think, jokingly been floated up there on social media. But Preller loves Ryan Flaherty, who is like the offensive coordinator. Remember, there's no hitting coach. It's Scott Kubaugh, Ryan Flaherty. I think there's one other guy, Morgan Burkhart. Those are like the assistant coaches and the offensive coordinator, the game planning guys. That's what it is. There's no like real hitting coach. Even though if we had to put a real hitting coach on someone, I guess it's Ryan Flaherty. When you have MLB Network on and you see the ballpark cams and all that, Ryan Flaherty is the one that's working with players, with the pitching machine. And I think he throws batting practice a little bit. But Preller loves that guy. I don't know if Melvin does, but Preller does. I think Preller's the one that hired him. Preller's the one that blocked him from being interviewed for the bench coach role with the New York Mets. So that's why the dots are being connected of Ryan Flaherty, next manager of the Padres, if Bo Mel goes. He could end up still being the next manager because if he stays on the staff for 24, Bo Mel, he's done after 24. Flaherty could just be promoted and be the next manager. He would have sat for a few years under Bob Melvin and probably learned a lot under Bob Melvin. And there's multiple former managers on that coaching staff, so he's probably learning a lot. And I think he's more in sync with A.J. Preller for sure. And so maybe that's what this Padres organization should need or should want, at least after 2024, is alignment. If they're going to go down, at least they're all aligned. All right. I think that's going to do it unless I see any more comments that stick out to me here. Yeah, that's it. Talking Friars episode 483. Almost an hour and a half we went here. Again, expected that Bob Melvin and A.J. Preller are going to be back in 2024. Give your thoughts in the comments. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, thank you so much. I appreciate you. You can give your thoughts on social media or go to YouTube and you can give your thoughts in the comments on Bob Melvin, A.J. Preller. Do you think this is the right move if this does happen? Melvin, Preller in 2024, continuing to work in the same organization. I hesitate to say work together, work in the same organization. 2024, we'll see what happens. I'm happy that Bob Melvin is back. I'll say that. All right. Thanks so much for watching or listening. Have a great rest of your night. See ya.